reality does not bend to your belief. It doesn't care about your belief system. Now, somewhat the world is largely influenced by the mind, by their belief, but belief alone, it doesn't do anything. They had to put somewhat energy in based on what they believed and then, influenced the world like that. But imagine this situation whereby I'm like, okay, I just want some money. And I imagine and I believe I'm gonna get this money. Now, the problem with that is that me believing that does not make others do anything. It doesn't make them deposit money. It's how can my mind change the laws of energy? How can it change the laws of reality? So, fortunately, reality stays intact and it doesn't bend itself for the mind. It's us that bend around it. Mind does not define energy. Another problem with this manifestation thing is that we're all energy. Behind and beyond the lines, everything is energy. And energy is interconnected. All energy is a part of a larger body of energy, and so forth. Like I'm here, I'm in this body is in this room is in this house is in a street. We're all a part of these larger systems of energy. And what you want might not be what this larger body of energy wants. And another thing is, who are you? Who is wanting to manifest? I hear a lot of people wanting certain things without knowing who they really are. So who is asking? Because we have a light body and a shadow body. Our light body is driven by the heart. It serves the heart. And it wants this reciprocation of energy to come back and feed the heart and grow the heart in a sense. And then there is the shadow body that instead is not driven by light and love and unity. It's driven by trauma. It's driven by fear. It's driven by pain. It's something unconscious. When you're driven out of your heart, it's driven out of consciousness. When you're driven from your shadow, from your ego, from your trauma, it's driven from your unconscious. And they want two different things. They are moving in two different directions. And so when you want to manifest something, are you really manifesting it from who you really are? This heart and this energy. Or are you trying to manifest something out of your fear, out of your trauma, out of who you're not? Because the shadow body, the ego body, this trauma body is a hollow shell. This inner domain is of the spirit, it's of the heart, it's of this light and this love. And so they're really going in different directions. Now, I'm not going to say you can't manifest. I'm not going to say you can't get what you want. And there is a way to attract, but it's not like what you've been taught. It's not from the mind. The mind just, it doesn't define reality. It doesn't define the energy. And if you imagine this, the mind is something that is on the surface layer. It's connected to the brain. It's in a polarized reality of up, down, black, white, man, woman, this material, this physical level. It is bound to that level. And it is like a hollow layer. It is like this surface level, which is also why that whatever you think, it doesn't move energy. Because the energy is here. And the mind, it doesn't define this heart. It doesn't define the energy that is here. I mean, imagine if it did. You could just imagine you've got no fear anymore, and that would be it. But why is that? It's because the mind, it's just almost intangible. It's really on the surface of everything. It's the outer layer. The energy is the inner layer. And it's the energy that is of and bound to reality. So, people need to come to terms with the fact that to manifest is to do your processes, is to do the work, it's to directly work with the energy. You remember, you can't just believe that. There's time and place and process, and that takes time. So imagine this, you have this input and you have this output. At the center of us, the inner domain is energy. And imagine this like you input, and then you've got this output. If you change your input, you change the output. But the input is, where we are, for example, attached in life. It's how we are feeding and maintaining this level of a body. And it's what keeps us on this kind of plateau of energy, and it equates to certain dynamics in your life. And if you change this enough on the inside, by changing what you're attached to, changing what you release and no longer feed on, your frequency will change. And if you do that enough, you will move on to another kind of level, another body of dynamics. And this output, this outer world, will begin to reflect that. You've seen it in life when you get a sense of, always attracting the same thing or going around in circles. You have to be able to change this and work with your processes on the inside. You can't cheat evolution. You can't bail out of this cosmic process by just manifesting what you want to get out of that. You have a kind of soul contract, and your heart rules. Again, our mind and our belief of who we are is like this infinitesimally small proportion of reality. And your heart prevails over that. So we are bound to what our heart needs in order to grow. Imagine a situation like this. You attract a partner, and you come to learn that this partner betrays you and is this narcissist. And as at first, when you're aware of that, you realize up here that you don't want that. but nothing changes. What makes the change is when you come to this point where it's really in here, and you have this passion and this fire, and you realize you just really don't want this anymore, that you're not gonna accept it. And where before in this connection you accepted these energies, somehow you were attached, and this maintained this identity and body of energy by staying in that relationship because you accepted it and you allowed it. But where that partner leaves, when you move on from that, is when you absolutely refuse it and you no longer accept, in a sense, this level of energy. You no longer accept this level. And you're like, I'm not going to be shouted at. I'm not going to be treated like this anymore. And when it's not really on that level, you begin to let go of the tethers, the cords, the lines, or whatever that keeps you attached to that level of frequency. And therefore, you allow yourself to kind of like float up, a bit like imagining, a big balloon that is anchored to the ground. And when you refuse those attachments, you refuse these beliefs or these ways, then it's like you start pulling those cords up, and then you can start to rise to a higher frequency that involves another set of dynamics. And what you find in life is you keep attracting a certain pattern until you actually do the work. But many of us kind of want to get away from it with the mind, like, oh, we need money, we need this and that. But we're always trying to solve a problem in this paradoxical way by solving it on the surface, but not actually solving it at the root, with the realization that everything is energy, and all of energy is in the domain of the inner, and that therefore is within us. And so manifestation is more like using these kind of levers. So it requires a trade-off. On the one hand, you need to push, and at the same time, you need to pull. So we refuse, and we no longer accept, and we're just not going to feed off that energy anymore. We're not going to attach to that energy anymore. We're no longer, going to embody or cater to that energy now. And then on the other hand, you have a wish, you have what you desire, and you can desire whatever you want and pull that towards you with effort if it serves your heart. And that's the thing, it's got to serve your heart. So we let go and we push this old energies away, and then you can imagine whatever you want, whether it's money, it doesn't matter, as long as this is pulling you to this higher level. And this is the way the universe works. It works with some form of trade-off, some form of sacrifice. You have to be willing to let go of something, to create the space for something new to come. Let go of old dynamics with old ways, old behaviors, for something totally the opposite and new. And so you have to do the work for that. You can't believe yourself onto a new frequency, because your frequency is not defined by your mind. It is defined by your heart, because the energy is not there. It's here. It's the center where the reality is.